All right, are you guys ready for another edition of the Weather Academy? I'm meteorologist Craig Flint, and exciting topic today. I love talking about the atmosphere in general, right? Do you know that song by, I think it's Elle King. It's called X's and O's. Or have you ever played tic-tac-toe with a friend where you do the X and the O? Well, that's kind of what we're going to talk about, only we are going to talk about the H's and L's of weather. H meaning high pressure, sinking air, nice weather. Low pressure, lousy weather. So when we talk about high pressure, if you like good weather, that's what you want. Low pressure, kind of how I remember it, is just lousy low. It's usually a lousy weather pattern when we have a low over top of us. So just a kind of a quick review there of high and low pressure. Now these pressure systems are all over the place and impact our weather on the regular. So we got to review a little bit first, though. We talk about jet stream, that river of air, way up high in the atmosphere. The jet stream acts like a highway for these areas of high and low pressure to traverse along. It's like a river of air, and these little disturbances and weather features have to follow that river of air. And it's our job to figure out how the jet stream kinks and bends and ultimately what kind of weather we will get, because the jet stream, even though it's up high, drives weather here at the surface. So it's the narrow band of strong winds in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, and the jet stream follows those boundaries between hot and cold air. Well, we're going into the warm season, so what's up with the jet stream, right? Well, typically in the warmer season, the jet stream is weaker, if that makes sense to you. It's not as feisty, if you will. And because it's a weaker jet stream, that means fewer disturbances. I'm not saying that there's none, but fewer disturbances, fewer areas of low pressure in the warmer season versus the colder season. So why is that important? Well, that's because the weather pattern kind of slows down to a crawl. And this is actually pretty pertinent because, well, going into March, or going through March, I should say, and going into April, we've kind of had a slow-moving, stagnant weather pattern. So this is a pretty interesting topic to discuss. So when we talk about the weather pattern slowing down, it can slow down and come to a screeching halt, and sometimes it can last for days, if not weeks. So I want to talk to you about the different type of what we call blocks in the atmosphere. So let's take a look at them. We have a cutoff low, which is a blocking pattern. Blocking high makes sense, right? Something called an omega block. You might have heard us mention that before. And something called the Rex block. We're going to go over all of these and what the implications of each one of these blocks in the atmosphere has on our weather pattern. Because these set up quite a bit, especially going into the warmer weather season. So let's start off with the cutoff low. Well, as the name implies, it's cut off from the main jet stream, which is here, right? So you have that river of fast-moving air, right? And then a little piece of that jet stream energy kind of separates itself. Well, when you have a cutoff low pressure, remember, lousy weather. When you get stuck under one of these, it's days and days and days and days of cloudy, cool, rainy weather. So that's the cutoff low, which we see typically going into the spring and also in the fall. These little pieces of the jet stream become separated from the main flow. So we have cutoff lows, and well, it's not nice when we have a cutoff low over top of us. Forecast is pretty cut and dry. We just throw rain in the forecast every day. So that's the cutoff low. We mentioned the blocking high. Well, remember, I was saying high pressure, nice weather. Low pressure, not nice. Well, when you get a blocking high, this is what it looks like in terms of the jet stream. This high is so strong that it doesn't move. And this is when you can get those long-lasting days where, you get heat waves and there's just like zero rain for days when we have a blocking high pressure system, which does happen typically in the summer. That tremendous heat bubble that we call it usually expands, and as that air expands and sinks, it warms. So that's when you can get your heat waves. So that's the blocking high. Then we got into those fancy words, right? Omega, Rex. Well, if you're familiar with the Greek alphabet, something called the omega block. Why is it called the omega block? Well, if you look at the main jet stream, it kind of resembles the Greek letter omega. Basically, what the omega block is you have a strong area of high pressure in between two lows, right? And this type of pattern is something we look for, and it's all about location with this type of pattern, because again, when you have a blocking pattern in the atmosphere, nothing moves. So when we get an omega block, it really depends on where you are. Because if you're underneath the high pressure, you've got great weather. However, if you're underneath the low pressure systems, that's when you get the cool, cloudy weather. And it usually takes some sort of strong area of low pressure to kind of punch its way through this and break this pattern down. That's the omega block, something we look for. So again, Greek letter omega, like that, with a strong high pressure in between two low pressures, usually one there and one there. And again, if you're underneath any one of these lows, it's not nice. However, high pressure in an omega block is the place to be. Then we kind of smash these two patterns together. It's really cool. And we get something called a Rex block. Now, a Rex block is a little bit more intriguing, if you will. First of all, Rex blocks, they don't really occur here too much. I mean, they can, but they're more common like out west. And basically what the Rex block is when you have high pressure anchored directly poleward, with the North Pole being up there, right? So high pressure poleward of a low pressure. And these two features just kind of hang out, and they kind of do this little like dance with each other. So you have the main jet stream flow going up and over the ridge and then down like that. And then you have an area of high pressure and an area of low pressure. And the wind around those two kind of does this funky figure eight thing, right? So you've got the clockwise flow around the high getting scooped up by the counterclockwise flow around low pressure. So you kind of get this figure eight configuration here with the wind pattern when you have a Rex block. Again, these are more common out west. So that's just a few of the blocking patterns that we look for. Now look, the bottom line here with all this stuff is when it comes down to cutoff low, blocking high, Rex block or omega block, it's all about location. Location, location, location. Remember, high pressure, good. Low pressure, lousy. Stinks. So depending on where these blocks set up in the atmosphere and depending on where you're located, you hope that you're under the high pressure system. And when we get these blocks that set up in the pattern, again, nothing moves. It really takes a lot to break down a pattern like this. So all about location, all about the blocks, omega, rex, blocking high, and a cutoff low are just some of the blocking patterns that we look for in the atmosphere, and it ultimately determines what kind of weather you will see. I'm meteorologist Craig Flint. Thanks for logging on to YourErie.com for this edition of Weather Academy. We'll be back next week. Until then, always keep learning. Science is really cool.